know that person in your organization who somehow gets things done without any formal authority? The one who never pulls rank, but still has everyone from the CEO to the intern singing their praises? That's not luck or magic. It's skillful influence. And today, I'm going to show you how to develop it using two powerful frameworks that I utilize in my leadership coaching: Positive Intelligence and Clifton Strengths. I'm Emily Haverkamp, and after 15 years in organizations wrestling with the influence puzzle, I've discovered that influence isn't about manipulation or power plays. It's about aligning your natural talents with psychological principles that actually make people want to follow you. So let's be honest. Most how to influence advice is either manipulative or painfully generic. A fascinating study from the Journal of Applied Psychology found that sustainable influence comes from the intersection of two factors: leveraging your authentic strengths and creating a positive mental state in others. The data is also really compelling on this. Leaders who use this combined approach are rated 37% more influential than those using traditional influence tactics like pressure or exchange. When you combine Clifton Strengths with Positive Intelligence, it's an effective way to implement the approach that the researchers talk about. So I want to unpack a little bit about how these frameworks create genuine, lasting influence. So for those not familiar, here's a brief synopsis of what both Positive Intelligence and Clifton Strengths are. Positive Intelligence was developed by Shirzad Chamine and was based on extensive research he did at Stanford. It offers a revolutionary approach to both performance and well-being. At its core is a concept of mental fitness, your ability to respond to life's challenges with a positive rather than negative mindset. This framework identifies 9 common saboteurs: automatic negative thought patterns that undermine our effectiveness and relationships. These saboteurs include our judge, the inner critic, the controller, who needs to take charge, the avoider, who likes to sidestep the difficult issues, and the pleaser, my biggest saboteur, which is often seeking approval at your own expense. Research shows these saboteurs activate regions of your brain associated with stress and threat responses. This literally reduces your ability to influence effectively. When you learn to quiet these saboteurs and activate what Chamine calls sage perspective, your influence, it naturally expands. So then, what's this other theory, Clifton Strengths, that we added? Clifton Strengths was developed by Don Clifton and Gallup. It's frequently given as an assessment in organizations. It identifies your natural patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving across 34 themes. These aren't just personality traits. They're your innate talents for influencing the world around you. Gallup's research spanning over 2 million professionals reveals something remarkable. People who focus on using their natural strengths are 6 times more engaged and 3 times more likely to report excellent quality of life. So the key insight for influence from these frameworks: different strengths combinations create entirely different influence styles. They're all effective, but in very different ways. There is a power to using your natural strength-based influence style while deliberately managing your saboteurs to clear your head and activate your sage perspective. You're clearing your mind of the thing that is holding you back, and this allows you to maximize your strengths. So here's some ways to integrate these things. First, you do need to start by identifying your top 5 Clifton Strengths and your dominant saboteurs. For each influence attempt, create a simple plan that leverages your strengths. Build in specific checkpoints to notice when your saboteurs might be activating. Then you practice sage perspective techniques before important influence moments. And you gradually start to work your top 5 Clifton Strengths into your plan thematically. I'm going to put a link to both how to take the Clifton Strengths and the Saboteurs assessment in the notes to this show. Next, we're going to give an overview of how your strengths can be undermined by your saboteurs and what you do about it. Even if you haven't taken the assessments, you will likely recognize these strengths and the saboteurs, and you'll be able to identify with them and still find this useful advice. So how do we combine these frameworks into practical influence strategies? It starts with understanding your personal influence style based on your dominant strengths while also managing your saboteurs so you're not being undermined by your own mind. So, as an example, if your top strengths include some of the relationship building strengths, like empathy, related connectedness, or harmony, your natural influence path is relationship quality. However, the pleaser saboteur can hijack these strengths, making you seek approval rather than create genuine influence once you've built up these relationships. You'll just keep staying in a cycle of always trying to please people and not actually leverage these relationships in any way. Positive intelligence research shows recognizing and managing the saboteur increases influence effectiveness by 41%. So then, if your influence is coming through strategic thinking, if strategic, ideation, intellection, or analytical are in your top strength, your influence superpower is conceptual clarity. The hyper-rational saboteur often undermines these strengths by dismissing emotional factors and overemphasizing logic. Positive intelligence research shows balanced integration of emotional and logical elements increases influence by 37% compared to purely logical approaches. Next, there's also practical ways if you influence your action, if you have the executing themes. If your profile includes activator, command, self-assurance, or competition, your influence style centers on momentum creation. The controller saboteur often hijacks these strengths, turning decisive action into domineering behavior that creates resistance. In other words, it's the micromanager rearing its ugly head. Positive intelligence research shows leaders who maintain action orientation with managing their controller saboteur increase their influence effectiveness by 35%. And finally, if you influence your structure, which includes responsibility, consistency, deliberative, or discipline, your influence centers on creating confidence through reliability. If this is where your themes lie, the stickler saboteur can transform your strengths into rigid perfectionism that creates resistance. This perfectionism can actually hold you back from achieving things when they're maybe even beyond good enough, but not quite up to your stickler standard, and also just wear down your team. Positive intelligence research shows balancing structure with flexibility increases influence by 29%. So the second part of our influence equation now, it involves accessing what positive intelligence calls your sage perspective, the part of your brain that generates positive emotions, creative thinking, and empathy. When you activate the sage perspective, it can really push those saboteurs aside, and it can allow you to really unlock your strengths. Jameen's research shows that deliberately activating your sage perspective increases influence effectiveness by 53%, while it creates more sustainable relationships. So if you're worried about finding a way to both have meaningful relationships and still be authentic, yet influence people, this can be a really powerful tool for you. So when your judge saboteur assesses others as difficult or resistant, you automatically reduce your influence. Sage empathy involves genuine curiosities. So one thing you want to do with your sage is to empathize and not judge people. When your judge saboteur assesses others as difficult or resistant, you automatically reduce your own influence. Sage empathy involves genuine curiosity about others' perspective without any judgment. So here's some tips on how to implement this. Before you have influence conversations, ask yourself, what might they be concerned about that I'm not seeing? Practice reflecting back others' perspectives before responding. Notice when you're mentally labeling a person as difficult, because it may make you shut down. Look for legitimate reasons behind the resistance instead of just dismissing it. You may be actually the one that's holding things back here. And you need to ask open questions about concerns rather than immediately countering them with something else. You're not trying to squelch dissent. You want to be curious and hopefully get everyone onto the same page when there's resistance. When facing resistance, most people double down on convincing. Positive intelligence research shows that genuine curiosity, though, is 3.4% more effective at reducing resistance. So how can you implement this? How can you improve? Well, you want to replace statements with curious questions when you encounter feedback. Use phrases like, I'm curious about, or help me understand. Treat opposing viewpoints as valuable data rather than an obstacle to getting what you want done. Explicitly welcome different viewpoints and perspectives in meetings. You don't want a bunch of yes people. And notice when you're trying to convince rather than understand. Remember, influence, it's not about getting people to do exactly what you want. It's about creating conditions where others willingly move in a direction that serves both your own goals and theirs. By combining positive intelligence, focus on managing your mental saboteurs, with the Clifton Strengths emphasis on your natural talents, you create an approach that feels authentic to you and valuable to others. So what saboteurs might be hijacking your natural influence strengths? Drop a comment below and let's continue this conversation about building influence that truly matters.